You booked a room at Eilish's Inn, and that night you noticed somebody in the building across the road looking at you. The building across the road is Eilish's Inn, where you booked a room and you noticed somebody looking at you from the building across the road. I'm Barry Biev. This is Baile and Gótrin Radio, keeping you company in the small hours until the end. So I had a long and fruitful meeting with Petronella. She wanted me to update the town on its future, and I had some questions. First, she had found the weapon. The one true bottle? Clearly I had been deceived. The answer to the riddle presented to me was, in fact, Newgrange. The one true bottle would never have been in Newgrange. It had been explored constantly and all artifacts had been found in there. She had seen through this deception and found the one true bottle herself. Apparently I was given misinformation, and now that it is in her possession, there's very few things on earth that can hurt her. I think I speak for the whole town when I say that this is a fact at the forefront of our minds, considering all the town's problems. With all of this new power, I asked what her master plan was, but this question came too late as it had already been executed. You know those kind of shops or bars that you pass by and you just ignore? The invisible buildings that you know exist, but barely. Baile and Gótrin is like that tiny bar between the travel agents and the bookshop. Petronella has undone this feature, this level of invisibility. So, in a few weeks, this town will not need to find you. You can find it. So whether the country likes it or not, every rarity, oddity, and obscurity will be known to the country. And the country will be able to come to the home of these sciences, forces, and creatures. Why do this in the first place? Well, knowledge is power, and once the world knows of our unstoppable queen, and all the weird and wonderful things she has control of, in her words, they will have the power to submit to coexistence. They will have the power to submit to peace. As I left, she didn't say, "Have a good one," or "See you around." She just smiled and said, "Stay useful." On to our last story. We are going to talk about Cynthia, or Cyn for short. She had studied under Petronella along with Alice Walters, which is how I came by this story. And I decided to tell this story as a cautionary tale. Cyn had shown Alice certain passages that Petronella didn't know about, tunnels to Petronella's private collection of artifacts and books, so that Alice and Cyn could practice and train as sort of extracurricular activities. Now Alice was nice about it, but she felt that Cyn tried too hard, like friendship was a strategy, but she didn't know why. What Alice did know was Cyn was stealing ingredients from Petronella, vaulted herbs and roots whose combinations could change the world around them, or the people occupying that world. Alice and Lucius have coffee occasionally when he's not training for cross-country running, and he brought up an interesting fact about Cyn. Being in love has a smell. Your sweat changes in scent. Being paranoid also has a unique odor. And when you mix the two, you are smelling someone not in love, but obsessed, in an unhealthy way. They didn't know who, but someone was the pinpoint of Cyn's intense focus. Finding this person wasn't hard, because if this person was a friend of Alice, it would explain how being friends with her was an agenda-driven action. So Lucius and Alice went through who it could be, and while the list was long, Alice knew how to narrow it down. Alice explained that as a child she learned that her father's love, it was unconditional. Her mother's, that was a different story. Her mother tried to sap the magic from Alice's life. But when you're persecuted for what you are, for being different, because you feel at home not in the same way as the others, you twist yourself to make them happy. You say that you're the problem, because if the problem is you, then it's something that can be fixed. You just need to try harder. Alice said, I grew out of that mentality, but when you grow up like that, a crumb of compassion, it becomes a loaf to the starving. Sin is starving, and he tries to make everyone around him feel loved. He's perfect. He's her prince in shining armor. He's a fairy tale in her eyes. She gave his name to Lucius, and Lucius responded that it was a good idea not to tell the person in question for a host of reasons. Alice has even kept this secret from me, so I don't even know who it is. Alice didn't know the extent of the obsession, but what she knew was Sin had her power tied to the moon, and Alice may call on someone else who becomes their best selves under moonlight. Alice continued talking to Sin, saying that things like happiness can be internal, and when it comes from the outside, that's an unfair amount of responsibility on someone else. But Sin's heart could not be changed. Alice mentioned the name she had told Lucius, and Sin's eyes lit up like an animal being brought food. Alice did all she could to convince Sin that what she needed wasn't him, but help. But he was perfect. He was going to make everything better. And apparently, he was even giving coded messages. Because he says it every single time. He knows. Alice, he knows that we're going to be together until the end. Alice brought up that this man didn't even know Sin. And of all the things Sin could have said to scare Alice, her response shook Alice to her bones. No, you don't understand. He doesn't now, but he will. Alice went to Petronella, who seemed uninterested in the whole issue. Alice asked for help, but Petronella said she would be away on business. So, Alice mentioned the ingredients she saw Sin steal and asked what could be made with them. It sounds like she wants to tear the will from man. She's making a love potion, and one drop on his tongue, and you will never know him as anything else but hers. Petronella added, you cannot kill the will of man unless you make it on ground where man is dead. With the when and where, Alice and Lucius went to the graveyard to meet Sin. Lucius spoke to Sin about resources that were there to help that she could avail of, but Sin responded with a terrifying fact from his past. I heard your story on the radio and it moved me, but I also heard that you left a friend here. And Lucius, she is pissed, angry, wrathful, filled with hate about how your last meeting went. And Lucius, she wants one thing above all other things on the planet. She wants to come back. Transitioning in Baile na Gótrin meant that Lucius had fought his dead name, and then the earth started to split, and a voice came out of the fissure talking about what it's like to be dead and forgotten. An old voice he had thought he left behind. And while he was at his best at this time of the month, defeat can give you power too. We learn how to damage when we've been damaged. We learn what our teeth can do once we've been bitten. Lucius wasn't sure he could best his enemy a second time and hoped that Alice had an idea. Now Alice fought with all she had. Neither her nor Sin were versed in violence, but Sin caught on fast. Sin had something in her heart that even lay people only read about. A love that compelled Abraham to march his son Isaac to the sacrificial post. Sin would tear into the earth and destroy everything in her way for her God. A God that would soon be called her lover. That kind of focus could not be bested, and now all the players were being dragged into graves. So Alice attacked Sin's focus by surrendering. Sin was suspicious, but Alice had an offer to prove this defeat. She said she had brought a certain someone with her. Sin wasn't convinced until the door to Alice's car opened. And for a moment, for a split second, nothing mattered but the man in the car, the graveyard, Lucius snarling and clawing at what was dragging him by his ankles, Alice with the bruises on her face. It all washed away for the nobody in her car. But Sin didn't know that. And Sin, thinking it was the man she was obsessed with, revealed herself spiritually. She opened the most vulnerable parts of herself for the first meeting with her one and her only. And he could name 100 things about her in that moment if he was there, but none of these parts would ever be named hidden. And in that moment, Alice touched Sin in a secret and unknown place where power and connection resides, and Alice yanked at all the synapses, ripping apart Sin and the connections that gave her power. Sin pulled away and raised her hand, and then she raised two. Sin focused all of her might, but nothing was happening. The moon, it didn't know her anymore, and she didn't know power. And she had fainted from pushing herself too hard. With one opponent dealt with, Lucius learned that fighting to remember who you've become is sometimes better done with friends. It's also easier to pull someone off your legs with a friend. The dead name of Lucius was placed back in her grave, and then the two made sure that she belonged there. And Sin was carried out of the graveyard to the car of Petronella. Petronella had obviously left her business early to see who was going to win. Alice was asked did she feel like a heroine for saving this mysterious him, but Alice, she didn't, because this is everything that her mother tried to do, and in response as well to a warped version of love. Alice then commanded Petronella to help Sin untangle her mind with any resources that the town had. Anything from my top student. Hopefully, Sin has found her way to unknotting that version of love through therapy, medication, and or just the amazing people around her. Hopefully she finds within herself the power to rise above this. Alice has seen her once since, and Sin does look like she wants more power. Next time, do cryptids believe in you? I've been Barry Biev, you've been Baile Gótrin, and we've kept each other company in the small hours. But now, it must all end. You've been listening to Baile Gótrin, made by me, Jacob Wordsmith. If you enjoyed this episode, there's appropriate buttons to press and boxes to write in to show your support. You can also follow the show on its socials, which are Baile Gótrin on Instagram and Baile Gótrin on TikTok. As well as that, if you want to get a closer look at the production, or maybe get involved in the production, the Baile Gótrin Patreon page is there for you. Oh, one more thing. Thank you for coming to town.